Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, it has been revealed ambulances are spending nearly 100 hours a day sitting outside Tasmanian hospitals. Unions say there is one simple reason for the shocking new statistics: a lack of money.
Another day, another emergency ramp full of ambulances.
The escalation of ramping at hospitals has a significant impact on people who need an ambulance.
Data from Ambulance Tasmania shows the hours spent ramping per day increased by 53% in the last year, jumping from about 63.5 in May 2021 to more than 96 a year later.
We need more beds to be open now, and we need to invest in important health services such as allied health professional services.
The Health Department says there's been a significant increase in demand.
We are looking at ways to try and change the system and process to improve flow, and some significant examples of that are secondary triage.
Recruitment and retention were top of the agenda today at the Nursing and Midwifery Union's State Delegates Conference, calling again for a strategy to be developed urgently.
We don't mind what you do to fix the problem, but ultimately what we're hearing from members is that our poor wages in Tasmania is a significant blocker to recruitment and also retention.
Why should they be the worst paid nurses and midwives across the country? It's simply not acceptable.
It was revealed in budget estimates that $33 million had already been spent on overtime this financial year. That's money the ANMF says could have been spent on new staff or paying the current ones a competitive wage.
The government has got its head in the sand by denying the reality of the extreme stress that nurses in Tasmania are working under.
The Premier and Health Minister, Jeremy Rockliff, an apology, saying he meets with the Federation regularly.
We've employed more nurses, of course, within our health system. We've got over 1,200 FTE within our health system. We're continuing to invest.
Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
In developing news, Tasmania's upper house is continuing to debate controversial anti-protest legislation. State political reporter Ainsley Kosh has the details. Ainsley, will it be passed tonight?
It's looking likely, Kim. Members in the Legislative Council are currently debating amendments, and it's understood they will sit late tonight as this is the last day to vote before the winter break. Unions, Aboriginal groups and environmentalists have been outspoken against this legislation put forward by the state government, arguing it will block democratic free speech. But the Premier has denied those accusations. This is what he had to say a little earlier.
That's all we want. This is not an attack on democracy. This is about supporting a worker's right to go to work and work in a safe environment.
Now, if it passes after a second reading tonight, the bill will then go back to the House of Assembly, Kim.
Well, police have described the terrifying conditions they faced when trying to save Ouzman Trevor Foster in deadly floods in 2016. They say rapidly rising water became a raging torrent, likening it to whitewater rafting. They insist they did all they could in the recovery effort.
Trevor Foster was tending to these sheep 6 years ago when he was swept away in menacing floodwaters on his property in Ouse. One officer set the scene at today's inquest, saying the floodwaters were like a raging torrent. He'd never seen anything like it, and the area looked like a moonscape in the days afterwards. Adding to the trauma, Mr Foster's body wasn't found for another 2 years. The inquest heard search and rescue teams didn't have access to specialist equipment for swift water emergencies, and they haven't been bought since. But when one officer was asked by the coroner if there was anything he would have liked to have had which he didn't have, the response was no, adding there wasn't a great deal those responding could have done further. Another officer with the Marine Service agreed, telling the inquest police resources were spread quite thin at the time, but adding he had the resources he needed on that day to conduct the search. The coroner is also examining the deaths of Peter Watson, who was killed in floodwaters near Avondale, and Mary Alford, who was trapped by rising waters inside her home in Latrobe. The inquest resumes in September. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Health officials are preparing for Tasmania's public emergency declaration to end in a little over a week. The changes will see masks scrapped in high-risk settings and COVID vaccines will no longer be mandated. But the government says it doesn't mean its pandemic response is over.
On the front line of Tasmania's pandemic response, this is where COVID testing takes place at the highest level. Health officials examining the Royal Hobart Hospital laboratory as they prepare for the emergency declaration to end.
That the end of the public emergency is not the end of COVID.
The changes come despite a recent spike in case numbers, recording 1,043 new infections today and 2 deaths, an increase from 495 infections earlier this week.
While the daily number of cases has increased during the past week, this is expected given the number of large public events that have taken place together with the BA5 Omicron strain.
From Saturday, June 25, masks will no longer be required on public transport, schools or childcare centres, and on June 30 they won't be needed to enter high-risk settings. Next week, the vaccine mandate will end for government workers, leaving the decision up to department heads.
We've achieved a very high vaccination coverage across the population, which of course includes people working in these settings. So most of the heavy lifting that the vaccination mandate sought to achieve has been achieved.
Labor says the priority now is to manage growing flu cases in the community.
So we are in the midst of winter. We're on the cusp of a perfect storm. We've got high cases of COVID in our community, in our healthcare settings, and we've also got record cases of the flu.
We are early in the influenza season, and we know that in Tasmania that will extend right out into September and October. So please do avail yourself while it is free across those 3 settings.
Public Health is also considering changes to isolation rules for positive COVID cases after Victoria made a new ruling allowing people with the virus to make small trips in the car with members of their household. Small steps to help life return to normal. Ainsley Kosh, 7 Tasmania News.
3 people have been taken to hospital after a head-on crash at Bridport this afternoon. Emergency crews were called to the smash on Jarvis Link Road near the Bridport Road intersection around 2 p.m. 1 person suffered abdominal injuries and 2 others were extracted from the wreckage. The road was reopened just after 4 o'clock. Police have found a body believed to be that of a missing man. Paul Walmsley has been missing for 6 weeks. This morning, police located a body at Duck Reach they believe is his. They say the death is not being treated as suspicious but will be investigated. An 18-year-old man has been charged with stealing following an alleged armed robbery at Moona last night. He's been bailed to appear in court at a later date, but police are still on the hunt to locate other offenders. Anyone with information is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. The National Advocacy Organisation has renewed its fight to help bring to an end family violence in Tasmania. Our Watch will now work with local governments and sporting codes to improve values in the community.
Working together to eliminate family and sexual violence in Tasmania. The state government signing a 5-year partnership extension with the prevention group Our Watch.
It's an unprecedented undertaking, a 5-year commitment, which will make a huge difference to the lives of people in Tasmania.
So we're very excited about the future because with great partners such as Our Watch, working alongside the Tasmanian government, we can truly make Tasmania one of the states that is the safest to live.
Now focusing to providing education and resources to the local government sector and the state's sporting codes, including Football Tasmania and AFL Tasmania.
If we're going to create an environment where violence is less likely to occur, let's make sure we've got good policies and procedures, let's make sure we hold people to account, let's give women opportunities.
Since collaboration began in 2015, one major outcome was the Australian first establishment of a senior advisory role for prevention.
What the Our Watch senior advisors allowed the Tasmanian government to do is to strengthen primary prevention in Tasmania.
2 family and sexual violence action plans have been developed in that time frame, with a 3rd now in the works. Mark Zita, 7 Tasmania News.
Tails will be wagging tomorrow as Tasmanian dog lovers jump at the chance to bring their pets into the office. Ahead of Bring Your Dog to Work Day, we get a glimpse of a local hospital's therapy dogs, making patients and staff smile.
Meet the Royal Hobart Hospital's smallest employees, Angel and Hazel, the therapy dogs.
So the Occupational Therapy Department has had an animal-assisted therapy program at the Royal for over 30 years.
When the going gets tough, the short-haired collies get going, working twice a week to unleash a plethora of mental and physical benefits.
Therapy dogs can relieve pain, isolation, stress, can help patients with dementia.
It's a special treat for the patients.
You see them a lot in the paediatric department, but I work with adults and it definitely makes their days, makes their family days when the dog comes in, and it's just a bit of a change from the norm.
As well as the dogs.
They get a lot of treats while they're here and they love people. So two biggest things in life for them.
Today they're turning their snouts to the staff who aren't able to partake in Take Your Dog to Work Day tomorrow.
For nursing staff, for allied health and occupational therapists, physio, it's a difficult time. It always is in a hospital, and they're so good at what they do. It is a stress reliever for them.
Their presence has staff smiling from ear to ear behind their masks.
It's brought a lot of happiness today. We've just been able to step out on our break and have a little play with the dogs. It cheers everyone up, especially on the more difficult days where it's a bit stressful and unexpected things happen.
And with the personal rewards in clear view, staff say other local businesses would be barking mad not to bring their four-legged friends to work tomorrow. Brianna Boylan, 7 Tasmania News.
An iconic piece of television history is taking centre stage as part of a new Tasmanian art exhibition. Kylie Minogue's wedding dress from her famous Neighbours scene is now on display, helping to honour the end of the popular Australian soap.
An Australian pop culture moment that's hard to forget. The ultimate Neighbours couple, Scott and Charlene, saying, "I do."
Charlene, Edna, will you have this man to be your wedded husband?
The Cinderella-inspired dress Kylie Minogue wore as her popular character, now under lights inside the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery.
I think the attractions for the dress obviously relate to the closing of the show and all the nostalgia around that, but also because Kylie wore it and she's a megastar, isn't she?
A recent ceasing of production after 37 years. The display is designed to celebrate the popular series.
I think it'll draw people who were kids of the 80s, like myself. I think people who remember the show in its heyday will really come down and see the dress, but I'm hoping it'll draw a broad cross-section of people.
This frock encompassing the epitome of 80s glamour.
It's sort of intentionally quite romantic, and if we think about Lady Di's wedding as well, which influenced wedding fashions quite a lot for quite a while.
The dress was donated to the museum back in 1989, but has since travelled across the country and internationally, capturing the eye of Neighbours fans right across the globe.
The dress is interesting in that textiles require very specific display conditions, such as the very low light levels in this gallery, to maintain them for the future.
That's when good neighbours become good friends.
Grace Evans, 7 Tasmania News.
While keeping specific names under wraps, Ricky Ponting says he has a select few players in mind to bring to the Hobart Hurricanes. He's looking closely at the BBL's new international draft, which will allow clubs to recruit up to 3 overseas players.
What teams will be trying to do is unearth some platinum type players at a cheaper price point. I think that's going to be that's where the teams are going to have the most success.
The draft will take place in the coming months.
Good evening. Hobart 16 degrees today, 4 above average. Launceston, Burnie and Devonport all 14. 17 was the high around the state at Campania after Ross and Lake Leak posted the low of -1. Grove and Ouse 16, King Island, St Helens and Friendly Beaches 15, Flinders Island, Wynyard, Lowhead and Strawn 14 degrees. A few showers crept across from the west and north today as the high cirrus and alto stratus cloud pushed over us ahead of another front. Areas of cloud also over southwest WA, Victoria, New South Wales and coastal South Australia, as cloud with a front forms as well. Tomorrow, the cold front moves to the east but still remains over southern states. A ridge of high pressure builds over Western Australia. West-northwesterly winds at 20 to 30 knots, reaching 35 knots at times and even 40 knots over the south. Swells above 5 metres. We have a gale warning. That's from Stanley to St Helens Point and also from Tasman Island to Low Rocky Point. A strong wind warning for remaining coastal waters. So a windy day tomorrow. A top of 13 for Hobart and partly cloudy. A shower for Huonville, 12 the top and 13 for Campania. An early shower clearing from Launceston, 14 the maximum. Same for Devonport, a shower or two for Georgetown, 13 the high. Burnie, a shower or two and 13. Showers for Strawn, 13 as well, and the same for Wynyard. While for the east tomorrow, 15 the top for St Helens with an early shower clearing, partly cloudy for Swansea, 14 the maximum, 12 the high for Port Arthur. On Saturday, showers more frequent over the west and far south, a thunderstorm over the southwest, possible hail over the west on Sunday, snow to 600 metres as showers contract to the west, central and south, and on Monday mostly fine and partly cloudy, maybe another shower over the west and far south. Further north tomorrow, a sunny 18 degrees in Perth. Showers easing from Adelaide and Melbourne, a sunny 20 in Sydney and 23 in Brisbane. And here we see the current inclement conditions. Bring your dog to work day tomorrow, Kim. Watch this space.
I reckon our two dogs will fight like we do, Murph. That is all your news for now. Thanks for joining us. Good night.